Welcome to the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Salmon, certified holistic health coach and author of You Can Afford to Be Healthy. And this podcast looks at a holistic approach to health from a multi-generational and multinational perspective of women of color. Okay, so we talked about this book on the podcast before, and I think it's definitely a timely book to pick up right now. So from that book, I'm making a savory salad, seaweed salad, using the nori rolls. You saw, or you will be seeing, my mom use nori to make vegan saltfish. So I figured it would be great to showcase a vegan dish, a raw vegan dish that you can do, to be more inclusive of family gatherings for folks that eat raw vegan as well as vegan, right? So we're gonna use seaweed, the nori seaweed, hemp seeds, some olive oil. We have kale here, which I like to add to my salad for texture because I'm really just a huge fan of kale. And spring mix, we got 2 garlic cloves. We have some Himalayan salt and cayenne pepper. Okay, I have my base greens in, and now I'm gonna get the kale together. Okay, so I just washed my kale, chopped up some, put it in the bowl, and now I'm gonna get to this garlic. So here we are, all done. Savory salad. Didn't take much time to make. And of course it's delicious. I knew it was gonna be by the ingredients. This is so good. You definitely need to try it.
Okay, so I'm gonna make some zucchini fritters. I'm just prepping for the fritters. These are green onions, otherwise called scallion as I know it. My zucchini is already prepared. I grate it and I remove all the excess water from it by using a cheesecloth. This also called for, which I make fritters before, so it's basically the same procedure like anyone who have made any kind of fritters. It's the same. You have to use the same ingredients in there to hold fritters together, but the main ingredients in this would be the zucchini. This zucchini was prepared yesterday, so now empty it into a bowl. And when you think this is reached a point where you could actually use your hands, and of course, you can use your hand, you wash your hands and use your hand and form them or mold them or whatever you want to do, because now it's coming out to be exactly how it's supposed to be. So you just make sure your hands are clean. You can use your hands, or you can use a ice cream measure to take out your fritters and form them the way you want them to be. And in a few minutes, I'm gonna put these in the air fryer. So you can do it in 2 ways to form your fritters. But I like to use fritters. You're really supposed to drop them, right?
What does that mean,
drop them? You take them like this. Mm-hmm. And you drop them, but mine is very firm because I'm gonna form them the way I want them to come out. So I'm gonna use my clean hands that I just washed. I take the amount I want and I do like this, right? And I put them down like this, and I'll use the spoon and the form of the fritters I want, form it the way I want it, the size I want it and everything. You form your fritters. Yeah, you might come to chunks of garlic in there, but garlic is good for you, so don't worry. Form your fritters like that, because when you make them too thick, the heat don't go through, and you want everything to be the same size that they cook the same time. They're gonna go into the air fryer. Okay, so you might get bumps on the way while eating your fritters because things are not finely chopped, but these are vegetable that's good for you. These are green onions and garlic, good for the system, no problem. All right, take him and push him in the middle. So when you're lifting it up now to put it in the air fryer, you gently lift it up like this. See? And you just set it in the air fryer. So this is what they look like when they're finished.
So how long you put it in there for?
12 minutes.
6 on each side.
6 on each side.
So now is the taste test. They're not hot? How you just touching them?
Oh, my hands are pretty good. I have good hands. See? They're pretty good. See, that's how they
You
look.
have good hands. Please
That's
do
a
not
finish
try
look.
this at home. Touching
It's a
hot
finished
stuff.
look. Now, you can put stuff on yours if you want, but you can put sour cream, which
There's a raw vegan sour cream.
Exactly. You can put anything on your fritters you want, but personally me,
Yeah.
I like fritters. I don't put nothing on it to disturb what the taste that the fritters has.
Right.
So that's it, and that's what they look like. Okay, that's the finished look. Heavenly. Okay, so good. Very nice. It's the first I ever did this in the air fryer. Tastes very nice. Tastes exactly what I expect it to taste. So now I'm gonna try it with the sauce to see. We don't double dip though. I'm just dipping this in. We're not gonna double dip.
It must be really firm to do all of that.
Yes, it's nice and firm. This one I kept it in a little longer, so to avoid double dipping, I make sure I dip the part.
What you think?
Mamma mia. Tell me what you think.
For some reason, it's spicy.
The ginger. It looks good, tastes good, but I have to control myself. I don't want to eat all 4, so I'm going to share it with the rest of the family.
Okay, so we have the scallions here, scotch bonnet pepper, tomato, salt, coconut oil, nori diced, thyme, garlic, ginger, onion, orange and yellow bell pepper, and we have the heart of palms. Everything we need to make vegan saltfish.
And what going after that? We're going
Saute onion and scallion until soft.
onion.
Once tomatoes are softening and juices begin releasing, add your thyme leaves.
And so I'm leaving another food processor, you see?
Because this is just the saltfish, it's not the slime.
Yeah.
I was mesmerized when you were putting that on. I forgot about the camera.
Oh yeah. How long you cook it down for?
Doing that because your hand. So you just saw the saltfish my mom made for Thanksgiving, and this is a main entree, of course. It looked a little soft in the cook down portion of the video because it gets more like the saltfish like texture as you continue to cook it down. But I know you made a tweak to it, right? Because you've pretty
Yeah.
much perfected it now.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a difference in how you're doing it, or it's the same thing like when you're cooking it down, it's pretty much soft?
Okay. You know what I find out? And they never mention it, but saltfish is dry. So the next time I'm going to do it, I'm going to put it in the oven on a low. I'm going to put it in the oven and dry it out a little because that can be done, you know?
Okay. So the last time I had it when I was there, that's not what you did.
No, but I'm going to perfect it.
Oh, because I mean, at the end, like the when I had it, especially the last time, I think that was probably your second time making it. The texture tasted more dried out and like definitely spot on.
As a matter of fact, there is another way that you could do it. After you put it I never put it in the food processor when I made it this time, but if I do, you can use that you can squeeze it out with that what do you call that cloth again that you
the cheesecloth? But that's like extra stuff because I think you basically figured out that the food processor made it too wet,
too mushy.
Yes,
because you're actually mixing the water into it.
Yeah. So you just skip that part and you just use your hands, right?
Right. So this will be the second, third. This will be the fourth time I'm making it.
Oh, wow.
And what I'm going to do, because I really love it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the oven on a low temperature, like when you hydrate things.
You dehydrate.
Right. So to get some of that excess water out of it. Right.
Yeah. And that recipe was from the Mindful Plate. I think she did a great job with this recipe. And I had never had heart of palms before. I think it's so amazing that literally it is the heart of palm trees. Like, you know, you can use all the things, all the parts.
That's what it's called, plant-based diet. Yes.
Yeah, it's so amazing.
I can pick up 2 large bottles this week just to make sure I don't run out.
Yeah, so this one is definitely a staple. It's a winner.
It's a winner. Not the oxtail.
The oxtail, we're going to show everybody how the journey to making that infamous oxtail next week.
And then the next one that is a winner too is the zucchini fritters in the air fryer.
Yes. Yeah,
that one was also very nice. Yeah.
And so folks, you got to see that just a few minutes ago with we looked for a raw vegan sweet and sour sauce to dip it in because it was a little dry from the air fryer, but it tasted great. Great. And that's a really great way to incorporate raw foods as you're getting started into it, like making raw vegan sauces, salad dressings, marinades, things like this, you know. The main ingredient for the saltfish to make it really taste like saltfish was nori. That was your first time using nori?
Never before, never.
Yeah, and
as a matter of fact, if you want to, you could also use nori with other recipe because it has a very nice flavor to it.
Yes. Yeah. So you just saw I made a nori salad, which is bomb. Like I crave it every day. And honestly, I think it's because I crave salt. I love salt. Like I wake up in the morning and I want salt. I crave salt like vampires crave blood. Like seriously, like I am a salt addict.
No, you have to be careful with that though, Sam.
I know, which is why I don't like to use
I tell you what you could do
too much salt in my meals, but that's why my food never really tastes as great as restaurant food, because restaurant food, you know, they're putting in a lot of salt and a lot of oil
and a lot of sugar and a lot of cornstarch and you have to be very careful of. But if you crave salt, one of the best veggie for you would be celery.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really is a natural salt source with celery.
Yeah, but you know something, as the Bible said, we are the salt of the earth. And if the salt lost its flavor, where does it go though? Because if we don't add salt to certain things, like when I eat avocado, I have to sprinkle a little salt in it, especially the large avocado, especially the one that is not organic. If I swallow that avocado without the salt, I get a stomach ache. Now, tell me what's wrong with that. If I put salt in it, my stomach is fine. Somebody needs to do research and get back to me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, seaweeds are a great salty source too. So like nori is just naturally salty because it's from the sea where, you know, the salt, the minerals and things are. And it's great for the thyroid. It has a lot of great benefits.
You know, some like it's instead of putting salad dressing on the salad, because when I eat a salad and I don't want to dress my salad, okay, so I sprinkle a little olive oil in there to give it that nice little appetizing look. But what I've been doing, I've been slicing pickles and put in my salad. It's so delicious.
Yeah.
So I don't use dressing, I use pickle, but you just gave me an idea. The nori is very good to dress your salad because it has that taste to it.
Right. Yes. Yes. And this nori salad, like I said, definitely try it. Hemp seeds, olive oil, nori, all the things. And of course, I like to add the kale in there for texture and stuff. It's beautiful. It's big. It's satisfying. It's delicious and completely raw vegan. So, and I also want to make sure that you all know that this is the last month that the 30-day raw vegan challenge is free. It's getting an upgrade next year. So, and then, you know, once it gets an upgrade, it's going to become a paid program. So to get in right now for free, just make sure you go to the link at the bottom of this video or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast, 2022, we are going to be doing a lot of food demonstrations. So you definitely want to head on over either to Spotify, where you can watch the podcast in its video format, or YouTube, or just straight to the blog, rawfoodmealplanner.com, to see the videos. We've been doing that this month so far. Since November, we've been doing that with all of the delicious vegan recipes my mom made for Thanksgiving, and just incorporating a lot more raw food so we can all eat more raw as we go into the new year, for simplicity, for health, also cost effectiveness, stronger immune system. I mean, that's more important now than ever, I think. Which is a great segue to an email I got from someone who went through the 30-day raw vegan challenge, or she signed up. She didn't actually do the stuff. She didn't eat the foods or anything because she has some concerns. So she emailed me and said, it's been a practice that during fall and winter, she stays focused on food that is heated or cooked. This has become a year-round practice since COVID. The thinking is that the heat will help eliminate germs. And for these reasons, I just couldn't get on board with raw at this time. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts, Ma? Because I definitely have a lot.
Yes. And I think I discussed this with you too, but you probably don't remember. And not because of COVID, but because of for people who live in, like, you know, in the north, where we have snow and cold and stuff, you know, not the northern life. In the winter time, it's very hard for people to have cold stuff or just room temperature because it doesn't warm your body. But there is food that you can have at room temperature, like ginger, turmeric, and all those things that really warm you. But personally, myself, I rather go on raw in the summertime, it's better for me. So I agree with her. And it has nothing to do with COVID. I agree with her that,
Yeah.
So so that is something to think about. But as I said, there's people who go raw right through the year. I mean, I don't know where they live, but
well, I mean, I know me personally, when I lived in Chicago, and Chicago had the worst, coldest, harshest winters I have ever experienced. And I'm born and raised in Queens, New York. Like, Chicago is 10 degrees colder than New York at any given time, just because of the, Lake Michigan right there. I actually craved raw foods more in the winter, but and it didn't bother me because I had heat, and so I understand, like, if you are concerned about your heating bill and stuff like this, and that, I guess it just matters on listening to the body, number one, and number two, where you are on your journey, because I feel like once you have an understanding on the purpose of eating raw foods, like when I got this email, I actually felt disappointed in myself that I haven't properly communicated how the body works and the reason why raw foods are important. And so that's why I wanted to kind of highlight that here, because maybe we have new listeners. I've been talking about this stuff for quite some time. Rawfoodmealplanner.com started in 2014. And, after a while, I personally get tired of talking about the same stuff all the time. But this email was a reminder that, our education system on how the body works, like just the basics of how our body works, the purpose of sleep, right? It's not just, time where you don't do anything. Like, there's a reason why we actually need to sleep, and we need to sleep at certain times, and why we eat. You understand? Like what is the purpose of eating? It has a purpose. Not only what we eat, but the times that we eat. Like, all of this stuff, I feel like, should be basic studies in primary school. And if it was the case, because right, every child in America has to go to school up until high school, right? Like, by law. So if this was the case, I feel like when COVID-19 dropped, there wouldn't be so much ignorance, because the ignorance of folks right now is making it really dangerous for all of us. So I just kind of wanted to dig into that. Like, heat doesn't kill viruses, right?
Okay. Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Let me just right there. You must think of generation. I am from an older generation than you are.
Okay.
And as your mother, I remember in the morning when you were going to school, I always say, remember, have some hot cereal. We come from that. That in the morning you have a warm breakfast to warm your stomach before you go out in the cold. So sometimes when the podcast goes out, it's everybody of all ages are listening to it. And if you grew up a certain way, it's very hard for you to let go. So the reason why I said for some folks in the summertime, it's best for you to go raw and go cold, because the summer is so warm that people feel more comfortable.
So yeah, for me, I don't have those same issues because, now I live in a warm area. And when I lived in LA, I lived in a warm area, but I also lived in Chicago for 7 years, right? Even when I lived in the Bay Area, when the wintertime hits, it drops to 50. That's not exactly summer weather, right? So I know what cold weather feels like. And what I'm saying, for me personally, I can't relate to turning off my bodily need for raw foods just because the winter hits. Now, there's some things that are different. And even some things that I feel like you wouldn't even have the problem. Because number one, you tend to run hot anyway. So I just don't see how raw foods would affect you in the winter at all.
Oh no.
Other than making your body temperature more comfortable.
Sweetie, it doesn't affect me. What I'm trying to say is just a habit for me.
It's a habit. Exactly. Exactly.
Habits sometimes is hard to break.
Exactly. And the first step to changing a habit is knowing why are you doing it? Because if you're just doing something to do something, it's not going to be sustainable. You have to have a why, a purpose, right? For why you're doing this thing. So that's number one. Number two, just to get back to what I was saying about you use ginger and Scotch bonnet and cayenne pepper in just about everything. These are warming foods. So, and of course you can incorporate them into raw food dishes. So I just don't see you having an issue. Like you said, it's a habit right now, but it's a habit that could easily be broken if you wanted to. Well, for you in particular, I just don't see you running cold. I see you having more bodily comfort eating raw foods in the winter, just based off of knowing you and being around you, especially the 5 weeks I just spent with you. I just, for you personally, I don't think it would be it. So it's just a matter of like, why would I even want to do this? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, why?
It wouldn't be a problem for me because I am adjustable. Mm-hmm. I am one of those person that can adjust very easily, like, it's just that I can't go to any country and eat anybody's food because I'm that type of person. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, I'm adjustable. I can eat, but I'm just saying, like, people from my generation, it's a habit thing.
Yes.
It's not that it cannot be done because you're really supposed to eat your food at room temperature. You're not really
so that's what it is. Like, I actually just started using frozen fruit in my smoothies when I came here to Florida. And I realized that the frozen fruit gives a smoother texture and allows, because the only reason I started doing it is because I was having some issues with the blender where it wasn't blending my stuff fast enough. So it was basically cooking like by the time I'm drinking, it's like hot. So I'm like, I added the frozen just to get some of the coldness back into it, at least make it not hot, but typically from the time that I started eating this way, which was 2008 to before I moved here, which I just moved here in 2021, I have been eating room temperature, basically, or a little bit chilled room temperature, because the stuff is coming out the fridge for some things, smoothies. All my fruits stay outside because my teeth are sensitive to temperatures. So all my fruits stay outside. My greens, my leafy greens, stay in the fridge. And so, yes, my leafy greens are adding a little bit of chill. Like my berries came in, and those tend to go bad faster out here when they're sitting out. So I put them in the fridge, knowing I'm not going to chew on them. They have to go in a smoothie because they're in the fridge, stuff like that. So like the temperature thing, all my stuff is basically room temperature, a little bit on the colder side. It's not warm, but it's not cold, same thing goes for like my salads and stuff. When I'm putting my salads together, there's nothing, by the time the salad is done and I'm ready to eat, it's basically room temperature. And trust me, I would know because my teeth are really sensitive to temperatures. So that's number one. Number two, like I said, about heat killing viruses. I've been reading a lot about, not so much the vaccines, but about COVID-19, and how the virus is working and affecting certain groups of people, right? I haven't really heard, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, that heat kills the virus,
No,
I haven't heard that.
It doesn't kill the virus, but it helps controls the symptoms of the virus.
So there's a few things going on there. Ever since COVID-19 started, the folks who have been most at risk for severe COVID and for death have been folks who are obese, which is, according to the medical system here in America, is a disease, right? It's not just a weight issue. Obesity is an actual disease.
The compromised condition, yes.
Yes, type 2 diabetics, and folks with, like you said, underlying conditions. But those are the top two, the folks that tend to die from COVID-19 are the folks who have obesity and type 2 diabetes. These are
True.
diseases, most of which are reversible with a whole foods plant diet. I won't even say plant-based, because plant-based means folks are still eating meat and dairy. If you have type 2 diabetes and your insulin levels are really, like you've had it for a long time and your insulin levels are really difficult to get under control, then you can't even play around with meat and dairy, like it, not even as a garnish, right? You have to go all in. And so a whole food vegan diet has the capacity and capability to reverse a lot of these things, heart disease, obesity, and whatnot. Now, with that being said, take it another step further, right? We're all clear on why we need to be eating whole plant foods, right? We get fiber, we get helpful bacteria that helps to strengthen our immune system. We're getting phytonutrients, we're getting minerals, we're getting vitamins, all the things the body needs.
Fiber, yes.
To work optimally, right? Right, the immune system, everything, kill cancer cells, everything, right? So we understand that. And for folks who want to learn more about that, I don't know if you have the book on hand, Ma, so you can hold it up, but Fiber Fueled by Will Bulsiewicz.
Oh, I don't have it on hand. I keep it in the room because I read it at night. Yes,
and it will be in the show notes. Fiber Fueled by Will Bulsiewicz, How Not to Die by Dr. Greger, right? These are critical books to read. Now, on the raw food side, a really good book.
You know, Sam, can I stop you there? Because when you say how not to die, people carry it the wrong way. My thing is not how not to die, how not to suffer. Death is not as bad as suffering because we have to die. How not to suffer. That's what I put on that topic. You don't have to suffer. You really don't. You get up this morning and you're having the best day of your life. And that's how you look at life. And that's how you must enjoy your life.
Yes. Because we don't really have the time and capacity on a podcast to go through how the body works, how it utilizes the foods that we're eating, and how it's affected by the different times of day that we're eating and all this. But Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, takes you through the top 10 killers of Americans and explains why folks are dying from these things and how they can be reversed with whole foods, right? Sometimes it's even not even just the whole foods. It's like you're in a situation where, for example, and I've seen this in Queens, you live above a Chinese food restaurant and they're frying chicken on the grill or whatever. Those fumes can affect your organs, you know?
Just walking in there can affect you.
Yes, you have a compromised lung just because of where you live, because carcinogenic meats are being burned and you're inhaling that smoke. Now you have a compromised lung, even if you're vegan or raw vegan, and now you're at risk for COVID-19. So this is not like, just eating this way is enough. There are many different things at play that puts the body under stress, right? Where that can lead to dis-ease. But there's always something to do the best you can. And that's really what this podcast is about. It's about giving you the resources and the tools so that you can be educated and be empowered. That's the empowerment piece. Raw food health empowerment. Yes, the title is long, but it's necessary. I feel the empowerment part is the education and awareness. So you have agency and choice to help yourself. So you are not a victim to the system, because the system needs money it feeds off of money to fuel itself constantly. It wants to grow bigger, fatter, right? And I personally made a choice that I'm not going to feed that system because I care more about me than the financial health of the system. You understand? And so the empowerment part is the education part. So definitely read these books. Every podcast episode, I have books in the show notes. Sister Vegan is another book that I was hearing about for a long time and didn't read it. And then I decided to read it after listening to Breeze Harper speak. who's the author. And it's definitely a great book for everybody, because it just shows the variety of Black women in the space doing veganism for different reasons in different ways. And there's a lot of raw food sisters in the book talking about, you know, how they got here, how they're doing it being parents and all this kind of stuff. So that's another great book. But Dr. Doug Graham's 80-10-10 book is critical reading to understanding why raw. And basically, why raw? Because obviously, what were we doing before we discovered fire? Were we dying? Were we dying, or were we proliferating? And that's how we act. Like, the reason I'm alive now is because before they discovered fire, they were actually eating the foods that they were meant to consume. You know, we see fruits in nature. The fact that we can see color, right? Not all animals can see color. We can see color. We salivate when we see fruits. This is not by accident or by happenstance. This is by design. The fact that our intestines are long, right? All of these things. He goes into like the physiology of the body and why it makes sense that, one, we are plants, we should be eating actually fruits as the main fuel source. But in their raw state, and Will Bulsiewicz talks about this in Fiber Fueled as well, in the raw state for most fruits and vegetables, not all, but most, we're getting the highest amount of nutrient value, specifically enzymes. Enzymes are critical for metabolic function. They're also critical for healthy digestion. And so I talk about that a lot personally, because I have a history of acid reflux. I grew up eating lots of candy, you know, the Sour Powers and all of that kinds of stuff, the Kit Kats and things. I grew up having pizza pockets, taquitos, you know, like cup of noodles. I had those, you understand? So I was eating all of those things on a regular basis. When I went to college, I was doing the McDonald's, I was doing the pizzas because it was cheap and it was there, it was accessible, right? And I had a busy schedule. So I fully understand. Now, when you change your diet, it's not a magic pill that all of a sudden now you're starting from scratch with this new food you just ate. No, there are cells dying off and new cells coming online every day. And from my understanding and on reading the nutrition science, the cells that take the longest are the bone cells. That takes about 10 years to replicate, to get new cells online and have those old cells die off. Now, to make this whole process work as seamlessly as possible, you need to be doing all the things we talk about on the podcast, eating the right foods to fuel your body, right? Because where does the bone get calcium from? It has to come from the foods that you're eating, right? It's not just going to magically appear. So that's like the foods we're eating are the building blocks of life. That's the foundation, right? We are living in a world where viruses have always existed and will continue to exist, right? Yeah. We are literally walking bacteria. Each one of us is more bacteria than DNA. And Will Bulsiewicz does a great job of explaining that in the book. And so we can't be afraid of bacteria. We can't be afraid of viruses. What we need to do is arm our bodies with the tools it needs to be the self-defense mechanism that it naturally is. Because most of us are putting toxins in our body on a regular basis, and we're still able to live to like at least 65. You know, most of us, even with all those heavy toxic loads. Why? Because the body is resilient. Yeah. Right? But it can be even more resilient with less suffering, like you're saying, if we give it the proper nutrition. And that's where the raw foods comes in line. So when we talk about healthier digestion, which is critical for the assimilation of all these nutrients, right? If you're not digesting properly, the foods you're eating is of no consequence, right? The body needs to be able to assimilate these nutrients. And so digestion is critical. That's where the raw foods comes in. That's where the enzymes are needed. If you're trying to lose weight, right, you need healthy metabolic function. That's where the raw foods are going to help. and for energy. You know, all of that's energy, because it takes energy for the body to do all this work. And if your diet and lifestyle is good, then you won't feel it. But if it's not good, you're going to feel it. You know what I'm saying? Just like after a heavy meal, you're feeling lethargic. It's because your body's doing a lot to process that food, like a lot,
Yeah.
you know?
After cooking, after you cook your meals, you do feel that way.
Yeah.
When the food, cook food really make you feel sleepy and luggy, and yes.
Cook food, if it's too much food, if it's too heavy, if it's something like lots of meats with no vegetables with it, you know, these things, it takes a lot to break down, like a lot, you know? And so from my understanding of COVID-19, again, I'm not a doctor, nor would I consider myself a COVID-19 expert. However, another great book to read is Dr. Greger's book, How to Survive a Pandemic. The COVID-19 is really affecting folks who have compromised immune systems. Some people have a compromised immune systems of no fault of their own. They were born with something, or they got an autoimmune illness later, type 1 diabetics, which is not reversible, right? If you're type 1 diabetic, that is not a reversible disease. It's manageable, but not reversible. That puts you in this category. So the best you can do is fortify your immune system. And that's where raw fruits and vegetables comes in. And like you said, if you're not comfortable eating raw because of body temperature issues, maybe you tend to run cold and you live in a cold environment. Yeah, you could wear sweaters. Yeah, you could put the heat on. Yeah, you could add some cayenne to your smoothies, to your salads. Yeah, and ginger, which I've done all of that. Turmeric even is a warming food.
Yes, it is.
But even that, you have options and you have choices. And that's where I think starting with fiber fueled is good, because he goes into, like, he's basically talking to most vegans, how to be a healthy vegan. The foods you eat cooked, but these foods, definitely eat them raw. Garlic is one of them. I peeped that, because garlic, you know, I would normally use garlic powder, but now I'm using more of the garlic cloves.
Garlic, it's better.
And I put that in, like when I'm making quinoa, I put that in after, like a seasoning, instead of with it cooking, you know? Because normally I would only pull out the garlic clove if I'm feeling like I'm coming down with something. And that's like one of my heavy hitters. Like, and I have a video on YouTube, probably one of my first videos on YouTube is what I pull out when I get sick. And when I got COVID in February of 2020, I did the same thing and it helped me. It's neem, which is a herb.
Oh yes, that is wonderful.
Yes. Garlic, raw garlic, cayenne, ginger, and lemon. Now it doesn't taste good, right? Because it's raw garlic and neem. You know what I'm saying? But that's not the point. It's effective and it always works.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I wanted to say on that. I think that, you know, it's important for us to educate ourselves every day on this, because nutrition science is constantly evolving. Like, new things are coming up. Like right now, the big thing is the microbiome and bacteria and like fecal transplant, you know, like these are new things, because we're learning. We don't know all the things, the amazingness of the human body, you know, even when we say eat raw fruits and vegetables, like we know that the compounds that are extracted from these things to make supplements are not as effective. Even the pills, the pharma drugs, are not as effective as the diet itself, eating the actual whole foods. We don't know all the reasons why. We discover later, right? But I know God in his infinite wisdom, he put everything in the plan. Even now with Will Bulshewitz's book talking about, I don't know if it was Will Bulshewitz or Dr. Greger's book, because I read all these books simultaneously, but you know, how even chlorophyll affects us and is interacting with the sun, you know, and we need vitamin D, and that's an interaction with the sun. And like, the bacteria. When we eat an apple, we're getting that the fruits, they have bacteria as well. Just like we have bacteria that makes our immune system strong, the fruits have bacteria. We eat that, and it actually makes us more healthier. It makes us healthier, makes us more resilient to things like
Good.
COVID-19 viruses and stuff like this, because we're not going to live in a sterile environment. And actually living in a sterile environment is not healthy for us.
No, because we need germs.
We need germs.
Something, Sam, knowledge is power. And that's where we get the raw food empowerment from.
Yes.
That's where the power comes from, because without the knowledge, and we have to get up every day and apply it to our life. Read these things, understand these things, and they're coming from the expert. And they all are true, and it means something to us,
Yeah.
It's our living, our life, our everyday living.
And that's where the topic of the why, right? Because you were talking about habits. I'm used to eating this, right?
Bad habits is hard to break.
It's hard to break. And based on the science, it takes about, on average, 66 days to form a new habit. For some people, it could take as long as 10 months, right? So first you make the commitment, but why would you make this commitment? Like, I know for me personally, I got off my salt addiction before because it was important for me, right? At the time, like, I think I was concerned. I was reading How Not to Die probably, and concerned about high blood pressure and like where that would get me, And so I wanted to just do an experiment on myself to see if I could even do it. Can I break free of this addiction? Because who wants to be controlled by food, right? Nobody. And I was able to do it. I forget what book I read. The guy, I think it was Dr. Perlmutter, his book about wheat. And he had mentioned, fasting for 24 hours on water and then not turning to salt ever again to help. And it did help me. The problem was I did go back to salt. It wasn't because I was craving it. It was just because somebody made something or whatever. I was off salt for a long time, but I had something from someone else, or I went to a restaurant or something. It got back into my mouth just unconsciously, right? Because salt is everywhere. Everybody's using it. Even if you're not using, you're not living in a bubble by yourself.
And it's in everything, though. It's in everything,
Yeah.
Other fresh fruits and stuff, but it's in everything. And the reason why I say that, it's in your seasoning. I've never picked up any seasoning and something salty not in there.
Well, I mean, salty and salt is different, right? Because celery is salty, but it's just minerals, right? So, but celery is not going to make you crave salt. I mean, I don't think so.
No, I don't.
But the eating of even Himalayan salt, like just having more salt to amplify flavors, because that's what creates the addiction. It's this excitement of flavor,
But Himalayan salt is not salty, It's not as salty as what do you call that? Hard
iodine.
crystal. Yes, it's not
iodized,
as salty.
I'm sorry.
I just learned that this week.
Well, the thing is, with all of these salts, it just amplifies flavor. And that's what creates the addiction. That's why salt is so addictive, is because it's a party in your mouth, basically. When you make a smoothie, right? And you could try this for yourself. Add salt to the smoothie and just notice the difference, just a little bit, not enough to be like salty, but just a little dash. The fruits are sweeter, the fat is fattier,
I would never do that.
Oh. Well, you've had it, because in Hylton Cafe, that's what we did, and people loved it. They didn't know, but they loved it. And that's basically what when you go to the restaurants, that's how they're getting people back in.
Only to the smoothie, not to the juices.
No, not to the juices. Not to the juices. Right.
That's what the restaurant uses trick anyhow. Salt and sugar and cornstarch.
Well, yeah, and fat. So I
Mhm.
think that's it. You know, we were on holiday time, so it's a great time to do a lot of reading.
Yes.
Educate,
And
educate,
you
educate.
you can't go wrong with knowledge, honey. That is power right there.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know, the better you will be. And the more you practice what you read, the better off you will be. Not just to read it, but to practice it, because you cannot go wrong.
Oh yes.
Just
And
study.
I needed to add here before I don't know how I could forget this. They actually did a study and showed that, you know, folks who are eating, and not even just folks, they did this study on healthcare workers from 6 countries: France, Germany, Italy, Spain, UK, and the USA. And how many people was in this? There were, the results after this study, there were 568 COVID cases in 2,316 controls. But I'll drop the link to the study in here for everyone to see. But basically, the conclusion: in 6 countries, plant-based diets were associated with lower odds of moderate to severe COVID-19. These dietary patterns may be considered for protection against severe COVID. That's what we know. We've known this from the nutrition science before, that, you know, how whole foods, whole plant foods supports and strengthens the immune system. We know COVID-19 is basically attacking the immune system. And so this makes perfect sense that folks who are eating this way, folks who are eating whole food vegan, and I'm saying whole food, stressing whole food for a reason, because not all vegans are healthy, right? Whole food vegan, you are in a better situation. You have better protections because of the foods that you're eating against severe COVID. So,
Right.
so yeah,
Not
so
processed food.
exactly. So the tofurkeys and stuff, that's not necessarily, you know, what's gonna help you, because there's so much oil in there, plus a whole bunch of other stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, so anyway, looking forward to next time we get together. We'll finally be showing people how you made the oxtail, all the blood, sweat, and tears you put into that dish. But the family loves you for it.
Okay, thank you. With pleasure.
Yeah.
It was some hard work, but I'll never do that oxtail again, though. It tastes very good. I'll eat it if I go out and somebody said that's it, but I would never do it. It's too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it next time.
But that saltfish was the bomb.
It's a hit.
Mm-hmm.